Mexico Activities Association, in cooperation with the New Mexico Athletic Directors Association, and sponsored by New Mexico Oil and Gas, presents NMAA, We Are High School Sports in New Mexico. During this presentation, you will hear from members of the NMAA staff regarding the basic expectations and obligations for athletes, parents, and coaches required for participation in NMAA-sponsored sports programs.
The NMAA is a voluntary organization made up of member middle, junior, and senior high schools in the state of New Mexico. The NMAA sponsors and regulates a unique educational-based athletic program for New Mexico school students, founded on educational principles and conducted in a school environment. The NMAA has three major objectives for educational-based sports. Number one, to ensure reasonable and fair competition. Number two, to provide first-class state championship events. And number three, to provide statewide leadership in areas of sportsmanship, participation, equity, and professional development. NMAA communication, regulation, and policy are channeled through member schools. There is a wealth of information on everything from member schools' contact information to eligibility regulation to contest information on the NMAA website, www.nmact.org. If you have a question and cannot find the answer there, the next best source is generally your local athletic department and/or school administration.
To ensure reasonable and fair competition, there are a number of eligibility requirements that must be met prior to a student competing in athletics. The details of all these requirements can be found in Section 6 of the NMAA Handbook. There are two overriding general principles which must be applied. Number one, transfers solely for athletic purposes are not allowed. And number two, the local school administration, i.e. the athletic director and principal, is a clearinghouse for student information and status as well as NMAA regulations and compliance. Now, let's look at a few of the most basic eligibility guidelines. A residence transfer requirement assists in the prevention of transfers for athletic purposes, impairs recruiting of student athletes, and reduces undue influence. Undue influence is defined as inducements which might result in the enrollment or transfer of a student, such as offer or acceptance of money, room and board, living with a school official, reduction or remission of regular tuition. Any inducement to get parents or students to change residence or enrollment for athletic purposes constitutes undue influences and is not allowed by NMAA rule. In general, a student must have a 2.0 grade point average with no more than one F, either cumulatively or for the 6 or 9 week grading period immediately preceding participation. See your local school administration for specific criteria and method for checking scholastic eligibility. Also, a student must be currently enrolled in more than half of the member school's regular class schedule and in regular attendance during the current as well as the previous grading period. Do not change, stop attending, or drop classes without consulting your coach and athletic director. A student whose primary residence is with his parent or legal guardian within the attendance zone is eligible. Please see NMAA 6.3.2b for documentation and strict criteria necessary to establish a bona fide residence. An incoming 9th grade student or an 8th grade student who participates at the high school level will have made his or her open enrollment choice. The open enrollment choice can be for the school within the student's attendance zone or outside his or her attendance zone with an approved transfer. The open enrollment choice allows the student to be eligible immediately at all levels, providing all other requirements are met. A transfer student is one who attends a high school outside his or her attendance zone, transfers and resides with someone other than parents after their open enrollment choice, or transfers to his or her home school after an open enrollment choice. If you change schools or plan to, you must consult with that school's administration regarding athletic eligibility prior to enrollment and participation. A student participant must be a bona fide student of the member school, enrolled in more than half of the school's regular class schedule, and must be enrolled by the 10th day of the semester or must be enrolled 10 days prior to participation. There are exceptions for home, alternative, and charter schools. See your local school's administration regarding athletic eligibility for those situations. Students are eligible for athletic participation for 8 consecutive semesters from the beginning of the 9th grade, or 10 consecutive semesters from the beginning of the 8th grade if the student participates at the high school level in the 8th grade. There are limits on the number of seasons and championships a student may participate in a given year, and career as well as a number of school and non-school events termed dual participation within a season. Please see your local school administration for assistance. Participants must have appropriate and current documentation on file with the school regarding parental consent, physical examination, and insurance prior to any participation in off-season programs outside the athletic period, practices, tryouts, or contests. A student who is 19 years of age or older prior to September 1st of the current school year is ineligible. The local school administration, i.e. the athletic director and principal, is a clearinghouse for student information and status as well as NMAA regulations and compliance.
NMAA policy includes some basic guidelines which restrict coaching in order to facilitate student and adult participation in multiple sports and activities, as well as academic and family pursuits. The NMAA encourages students to take part in as many school sports and activity programs as possible during their high school years. Education-based athletics and activities are an extension of the classroom, and each teaches unique concepts and skills that will benefit students throughout their lives. Coaches are expected to encourage multi-sport and activity school-based participation. NMAA Rule 7.4 precludes coaches from coaching current or potential athletes during the school year and outside their sports season, with the exception of an athletic period or equivalent time after school, an open gym or facility. This regulation applies to all coaches, paid or volunteer. If a student participates on a non-school team, for example, AU basketball, that is affiliated with or coached by a coach from a school other than the one the student attends, and then transfers to that school, it will be assumed the student has been recruited and or transferred for athletic reasons and will be ineligible for varsity participation for 180 school days, regardless of a change in bona fide residence. The same holds true for an athlete who might follow a coach who relocates to a new school. Summer programs are under the direction of the local school and or school district and not regulated by the NMAA other than undue influence, player following coach, and some philosophical guidelines. See NMAA 7.5.3 and local school policy regarding summer programs.